So now we get to talk about Taika's second Thor film, which makes him the only director to direct. Shut the fuck up. Siri was trying to interrupt me. Sorry. It makes Taika Waititi the only Thor director to do 2 movies. And boy, does it show.
This movie was a straight up comedy.
I would add to that by saying that it's a romantic comedy.
It's like with Multiverse of Madness, it was a horror movie.
Yeah.
This is a comedy.
Yeah. Because it plays with a lot of tropes that you see in those kind of movies. It's definitely a little wackier, and I think what the team's goal with this one was like, well, you know, we might as well make something interesting, and they just threw shit at the wall and saw it stuck, because it was like one of my biggest problems with the movie is I feel like the plot doesn't have as much. You could say the same thing about Ragnarok, right? How they're like going from place to place, but ultimately the goal is just to get back to Asgard. Like in this movie, Gore the God Butcher has his opening credits where you find out his backstory, and he wants to kill all the gods because his daughter was killed because gods didn't bless him and his daughter in the middle of this desert. And he goes to New Asgard, kidnaps all of the children, like a Sailor Moon villain, traps them in a cage on another planet, and then for the rest of the movie, the goal is just get the kids. And so they're going from place to place trying to like find ways to go to that final destination. So it's very reminiscent of Ragnarok, where like they start in one place and then they need to get back to that place, and they spend the whole movie trying to get back. But I don't know. I feel like plot-wise, it's a lot weaker than Ragnarok. I feel like the journey that they go on doesn't feel as smooth, because there are a lot of rocky moments. There are a lot of rocky moments in here, but ultimately I feel like the team that made this movie achieved their goal, because it's definitely different. It's definitely different than any other like MCU movie. I don't know, man. What, like, the general thoughts?
People were saying that Gore was the best MCU villain.
Not even close.
He wasn't even the best Thor villain.
No.
Who the fuck is saying that?
Yeah. Like, no offense to Christian Bale. Maybe there is some stuff that got cut from, you know, the movie. But just because he gets a backstory in the beginning of the movie doesn't make him the best villain. I definitely think he's a great actor. Christian Bale acted the hell out of this role, and like the different faces of Gore, he did really well. It felt like there were a couple of moments where he was like over villaining, you know, like when he has again, spoilers, when he has Thor and Valkyrie and Jane like hostage on his planet. He's trying to do like, I don't know. It's just such a far cry from his character in the beginning of the movie, who is so serious before he started killing villains, and then all of a sudden he's like this, woo, like this like Joker like villain. So I don't know. There were a couple of moments where I was like, that's weird, but I guess your character wasn't established enough to make me say that that's a weird character decision for you. I don't know.
In fact, the opening was kind of hella rushed too.
Yeah,
it opens. He has a daughter. He dies like a couple seconds later. Then he's at the god, and then the god's laughing at him. Then he kills him. It's like it happens so quickly.
Yeah,
and it's like the movie was what 1 hour and 59 minutes.
Yeah,
it definitely shows that they were like, hey, there was 4 editors too,
mm-hmm.
and it's like, hey, you guys got to get this shit down to under 2 hours for whatever reason.
It makes me wonder, because there are a couple of scenes towards the end too, like writing decisions that I'm like, this seems like way too convenient. I almost wonder if the production of this movie had to be like bumped up. Like I wonder if the Taika and crew didn't have enough time like with this movie to like write, because like, you know, how convenient is it that Jane just so happens to get cancer and then in her research notices a book about like Norse fairy tales and Thors and gods and stuff, and then reads the words like, oh yeah, people who possess Mjolnir have great health, and then she's like, that's what I gotta do. That's what, and they have this montage where they're going through her like at computers and stuff, trying to basically like the Doctor Strange montage, except a lot shorter, where he's like trying to figure out how to fix his hands, but she's trying to figure out how to fix her cancer. So I don't know. And then like once she's Thor, like they kind of get right into it.
Yeah, it just kind of happens out of nowhere.
Yeah, which I think is kind of cool. I honestly wish, though, like, from that point, we saw more combat from Jane, because I think we only see her really fight, like, 3 times, which I guess is enough times for some people, but I don't know. I just think, like, her power set as Thor is different enough from, like, Chris Hemsworth. That's, like, Mjolnir, because it's shattered, like, she puts it back together again, but she can, like, throw it in pieces, which is the coolest thing I've ever seen, because she has some really cool choreography where she's like flipping through the air and like throwing pieces and they're coming back and blah, blah, blah.
When you call this movie a romantic comedy, I was like, yeah, I mean, Jane's back and everything, but I think the best romantic scenes were between Thor and Stormbreaker.
Yeah, because they anthropomorphize. Yeah, I think that's the word. The hammers in this movie, because now there's 2. Like there were 2 in Endgame, but they both got used. But in this one, it's like Thor's old hammer. So like Stormbreaker will sometimes like Thor is like looking at Jane being all cool with Mjolnir, and he's like, so cool. And then out of the corner, like the back, you'll see like Stormbreaker just. And then Thor's like, "Oh God, I'm sorry." Like that scene. Remember that scene from The Office where Dwight, like they all go to that like Dave and Buster's place, and Dwight is flirting with one of Pam's bridesmaids the whole time, and then they're walking together and they're like flirting with each other, and then Angela is walking behind them. And the girl like walks off, and Dwight is like admiring her, and he looks over and he's like, "Oh fuck." It's like Angela just surprises him because she's so small. Yeah, that's how I feel with like Thor and Stormbreaker in this one. Yeah, and then Stormbreaker ends up having issues. There are parts of it that feel like Family Guy sketches. Like when Thor like rainbow bridges out of the main hall of like New Asgard, and he tries to fly away and he crashes into some pillars, and he's like, "Stormbreaker, what's going on? Is this about Mjolnir?" And then he walks in and he's like, "Didn't work."
That's what I mean. This movie is just a comedy.
Yeah, it's the action scenes are cool, but the funny scenes are really funny. I think it's less about funny dialogue in this one and more about funny like bits, and like funny like situational humor. So it's a different kind of comedy. It's still very Taika Waititi. Korg is great in this one too. But
I gotta say the whole like the black and white part,
I was just going to talk about that.
Really cool.
It is the coolest part of the movie, and we're there for like 20 minutes. It feels like, and just the way that they edit that sequence, and like the way that the shadow creatures emerge off of this really small planet, kind of reminded me of like a storybook. I don't know, like a gothic storybook. Or like the beginning opening sequence of Resident Evil 8, like Resident Evil Village, Yeah. Kind of reminds me of that. Or like Limbo. Yeah, dude. It's the coolest part of the movie, like direction-wise, choreography-wise, like fight-wise.
And look-wise. Like the only color was like the weapons and like their surrounding, like their hands or their armor. Like around their arm, it was like colored. Mm-hmm. That the blue lightning's going on. It looks really cool.
It really does. And we got to talk about the end, because after the fight with Gore and Valkyrie and Jane and Thor all fighting Gore the God Butcher, Jane fucking gets cancered so hard, so she's kind of out of the fight, and Valkyrie gets stabbed, so she's out of the fight, which was really disappointing because I was like, Come on, man! Like you're gonna just take her out and then have Thor. So Thor goes back up to fight Gore, who is trying to meet the I don't know if it's a god.
What's with these names? Thor's like grandfather was Bor,
yeah,
Thor, and now Gore.
Yeah, just give us more of those.
Give me more Gore and Thor and
Bor,
and
Namor.
Watch out for War.
Yeah, War. But yeah,
Door.
Hey guys, I'm in the MCU.
It's the Thor 5 character right there. It's
Door.
Door.
Yeah. So, I think the final fight in this movie is a little goofier than it needs to be, because they don't rescue the kids immediately. For anyone who's a fan of Naruto Shippuden, you'll know what I mean when I reference this, but there's a moment where in the 4th Great Ninja War, Naruto has to give his chakra, like his ki or energy, to like all of his ninja friends, and they all sort of get a little bit of like the Ninetales fox chakra that's inside him. That happens in this movie. Thor gives all of these kids the power of Thor for a second.
For a limited time.
Yeah, and so all of these kids who have no fighting experience, by the way, because he asked them at the beginning of the fight, does anyone here have combat training? They all just develop combat training and start killing these shadow monsters, which, here's what I heard. I heard that Taika, Chris, Natalie, and Christian Bale, all of their kids were in this movie, part of that group of kids that they have to save. So I can guarantee it was part of a conversation where all of them were like, do you guys want to be in an action scene? And they're like, yeah. So they put him in the last scene in the movie. That's what I mean. It's just like they were just trying to like have fun making this movie, and it shows. But unlike Ragnarok, where it's like a tighter story and like the action is tighter and like the big moments are like cooler, I think this one falls just a little bit short. I was thinking that it's kind of like Diet Ragnarok, where like it feels very similar because it's the same crew for the most part, but it's just a little different. It's just a little less. Yeah, man. And then, you know, there's a couple of sweet moments at the end where Jane dies. I almost thought that Gore's wish to the eternity, yeah, eternity, this basically God that can grant a wish to anyone who finds it first. I thought his wish, after seeing Thor and Jane have their moment, I thought his wish was going to be, well, I get to spend forever with my daughter if I just die. I wish that Jane Foster didn't have cancer anymore, because she said her name in the battle. So like he very well could have called her by name and said, I wish Jane Foster wasn't dying. I thought that was going to be the wish, but instead he decides to bring his daughter back, let Jane die, and then as he's dying, he tells Thor, hey, look after my daughter. And Thor says yes.
Well, Korg was like, I think he'd be great, Dad.
Yeah, but Thor didn't hear that. So I guess they do kind of hint at it in the middle of the movie, but yeah, and then the end of the movie is just Thor being a dad, having his like Kratos moment, which, speaking of Kratos, Gore is just Kratos, right?
Pretty much.
Just like killing gods left and right. They kill Zeus in this one, except not really, because he's alive at the end, and they set up Hercules being the next Thor villain, which is kind of cool because Hercules has his whole thing in the comics. And then Jane meets Heimdall in Valhalla, which is like the post-credit scene, which I think is really cool. Yeah, do I wish we could have had more Jane Foster Thor like in the MCU? Absolutely. Did I think this is a bad movie by any means? No. But I don't think it's as strong as Ragnarok in a lot of ways. And I don't know if I want to see this one again anytime soon. But all of our friends want to see it. So
would you take it over the other two?
Yes. I would take it over the other two. Definitely over Dark World, and only over Thor, because I feel like I would rather take a diet version of like the Taika Waititi Thor than, you know, the full Kenneth Branagh Thor. So if I had to rank all the Thor movies, I'd put Ragnarok, Love and Thunder, Thor, and then Dark World.
Yeah. Pretty much.
Yeah. So I don't know. Did I say anything that you haven't said or are thinking?
Not really. The goats were kind of funny, I guess, but they kind of yelled too much.
Yeah, I feel like that was a funny idea that they had, and then some marketing guy was like, "Oh, we could put that on posters and shirts and make them into toys and stuff, and kids are gonna like it." So they had no choice but to put them as soon as they were on the ship with the Guardians of the Galaxy in the beginning. By the way, the Guardians are in this movie in the beginning. But as soon as they put them on the ship and all they were doing was screaming and everyone was talking over each other, I was like, this is annoying. I think that's the point. But yeah. So we got goats on our shirt now. I say it's good. I say it's definitely a watch, especially if you're an MCU fan. If you're a Thor fan, 100% go see it. If you're going to see it because you think Christian Bale is going to be this god of a villain, then I don't know, you might be a little disappointed. But I don't know. So I'd say definitely watch it.
But you know what really annoyed me about this movie, Nick?
What really annoyed you about this movie, David?
Did Taika Waititi and Axl Rose fuck or something? Why is it that the only thing you hear in this fucking movie is Guns N' Roses?
Yeah!
I mean, my God. And not only did they play 4 fucking songs by Guns N' Roses, there's a poster in the back.
Yep.
Heimdall's kid is named after fucking Axl.
Yeah, but he wants to be called Axl because his original name is I forget what his name is.
Whatever. But he wants to change it because of a cool rock band he saw on Earth.
Yeah.
Dude, seriously. What did they call him up and be like, "Hey, can we use Welcome to the Jungle?" And Axl's like, "Well, if you want to use one of our songs, you have to make all your songs our shit."
That's probably exactly how it went.
Because he would do that. Because fuck Axl Rose and fuck Guns N' Roses.
Yeah. So the only reason we want to talk about Guns N' Roses today is so David can rant about how much he hates Guns N' Roses.
I'm so sick of them. I'm so done with Guns N' Roses.
Did you ever like Guns N' Roses?
I mean, at a point, maybe.
Yeah.
But then it's in every stereotypical, we gotta have a rock song. Oh, yeah, Paradise City.
Oh, yeah, or Sweet Child of Mine, or Welcome to the Jungle, which are all in this movie.
And then November Rain was in there somewhere, too.
Yeah, at the end, it was kind of it was yeah, that must have been how it was. Because I can guarantee Taika was just trying to think of a companion song that... for Immigrant Song that was in the first one. It was probably Sweet Child of Mine. But then they had to include the other songs because Axl was like, well, if I'm getting some money, I'm going to take all of the money and you're going to use all of the songs. Because he's the only guy in Guns N' Roses now. I mean, the only guy that matters because Slash is doing his own thing. I think Duff McKagan is doing his own thing. I don't know the other... members of the band.
I don't really give a shit either.
But did you know I bought Chinese Democracy when it came out, and I tried to defend Chinese Democracy.
Doesn't that have a Buckethead on it?
I think so.
I think he's on that one, or maybe a couple songs.
Yeah. I remember going to a Kmart when I was in high school, when I was going through my classic rock phase, when I needed to get the discography of everybody. And I found Appetite for Destruction in the $5 section, and I was so excited to get it. And I listened to it, and other than the classic songs on that album, because don't get me wrong, there's a lot of singles on that album. Yeah, but there's a lot of filler.
Those 3 songs. There's 12 songs on that album. I've heard it. I've heard it too.
Way too many. Way too many.
People
songs.
are yeah, this is the best debut album of all time. Are you fucking serious? You ever hear of a band called Boston?
Yeah. Oh, dude, Foreplay.
Yo,
long time.
Foreplay.
Oh my god.
Smoking.
Peace of Mind.
Peace of Mind.
Isn't More Than a Feeling on there?
More Than a Feeling, yeah. And then there's a 5th one.
It's towards the end. And that album only has 8 songs on it, and dude. 7 of them are bangers.
Get the fuck out of here with this Appetite for Destruction. No, I'd rather listen to Dick Cheese.
Richard Cheese. Yeah, I showed you David Richard Cheese because he has the first thing David said when the movie was over, he turns to me and he's like, if I hear Guns N' Roses one more goddamn time, I'm going to fucking scream.
And guess what? Guess what I heard when I turned on my car? The Drive playing motherfucking Paradise City.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
Yeah. So I can only imagine that Guns N' Roses is going to blow up after this because a younger generation who might not be as familiar with them is going to discover them through this movie. Similar to like how the TikTok generation of kids is now getting into Metallica because of Stranger Things, which, don't get me wrong, is fucking sick. I feel like Appetite for Destruction and Guns N' Roses are only going to get bigger after this movie comes out, even if it's only by a little bit.
God, he's such an asshole.
And his voice is not good.
Axl Rose is such a piece of shit. He's like one of the biggest cunts in rock.
Like notoriously bad. Can we say the C word? I think we can.
I don't give a shit. We run the show.
That's true. We don't have any sponsors.
Vanessa, is it cool? Yeah, it's cool.
We don't have any sponsors yet. But, But yeah, dude. So Guns N' Roses... I consider Slash a good, like the rhythm section, they do a good job. Axl Rose is an asshole, and only a handful of his melodies are really popular. But I think they fall into the same category as Motley Crue. They're like motorcycle rock bands, which feels weird. It's just like dudes with bandanas and like leather jackets, and they're like, yeah, I'm gonna rev up my motorcycle to Paradise City.
Or Kickstart My Heart.
Or Kickstart My Heart, or Girls, Girls, Girls.
It literally starts with the motorcycle.
Yeah. So it's like, it's the same genre. And like, also the lead singers both are terrible. Have you seen Vince Neil sing anytime recently?
Vince Neil sounds like, or Motley Crue sounds like Bob Dylan. You ever see that video?
No.
Oh my God. Look up Motley Crue sounds like Bob Dylan. And there's a subtitle. Someone put subtitles over what Vince is singing, and it's the funniest shit I've ever seen in my life. But I'd take Motley Crue over Guns N' Roses any day.
Yeah.
I'm so sick of them.
Yeah, so the fact that they showed up 5 times, 7 if you include the character named after Axl Rose and the poster, they show up 7 times in this movie, and if you're not a Guns N' Roses fan, it might drop it down in the ranking for you a little bit. But ending on a fun note, still within music and Thor, on the poster, like on the wall of like Heimdall's kids' room, there was also a poster for a band called the Mad Titans, and it had like a purple skull on it, which is like a cool little nod to Thanos because he was like the Mad Titan,
Oh yeah, and then the end credits, I guess every name was in a different band font.
Yeah, there is. I couldn't recognize all of them, but I saw Judas Priest. We saw Anthrax, Megadeth. I think I saw Creedence Clearwater Revival. I'm not sure.
It's like, where were all those songs, Taika? I mean, you put Rainbow in the Dark in the credits.
Yeah, which is really cool.
No, Guns N' Roses only.
Yeah, and the MCU, like the theme that plays is like on guitar.
Oh, yeah.
It starts on acoustic guitar and then it gets like rocky, which is really it's really cool. So yeah, fuck Guns N' Roses, fuck Axl Rose. Taika, we love you. Chris Hemsworth, this is the biggest that he's ever gotten for a Thor movie, and it shows. He gets naked in this. You see his ass.
He went from fat bod to god bod.
And then now he's living the dad life. So I don't know. We'll see how much of because there is going to be a Thor 5, and he is going to fight Hercules, and there is going to be a little girl. Is she going to become Thor?
Hey, you guys remember in the trailer where he was like, "My superhero days are over"?
Yeah.
They're not over.
They're not over. Chris
what the
Hemsworth,
fuck was that line?
Yeah, I think it was just a tease. I honestly thought that he was going to die and Jane was going to take over as Thor.
Honestly.
Which would have been a really cool idea, but, whatever, man. The next movie, if we end up getting like a Taika Waititi trilogy and he directs Thor 5, whatever it ends up being called, I think that'd be pretty cool. I think that's his plan, probably. And then the little girl is going to become Thor, maybe. Because she's got alien powers, too. She can shoot beams out of her eyes.
Oh, yeah.
And that's pretty cool. That was really cute. Like at the last sequence of the movie where you find out why the movie's called Love and Thunder. I don't know. It was a cute little nod, and like the little girl, she's a cute enough actress. Like she has funny lines, which is very weird coming from a girl who like literally starved to death in the beginning of the beginning of her life. She just comes back from the dead, this super positive, like cheery young girl. I don't know. Maybe I'm looking too much into it.